All right, welcome back. This is Technically Reformed. My name is Wayne, and this is day 23 out of a 365-day journey, becoming a developer in 365 days. That is the goal. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. Freecodecamp.org is a great resource for anybody else who's interested in starting their own journey. I have no affiliation with them, but I've been using them and really grateful that I've been able to really start to grasp a lot of the fundamentals of HTML. And right now we're jumping into some of the more technical semantics of HTML. As you can see, getting ready to talk about different hierarchies and this language. So it's if you thought about breaking into IT yourself, I'm doing it. So you can subscribe, follow my journey. Please leave a comment if you are thinking about breaking in or taking a journey, or if you're a seasoned developer. Any ideas or any boot camps or channels that have helped you, anything that could help me or someone else, let me know. Diving right into this, got a couple lectures, and I'm not sure what's coming up next, but I know I have 2 lectures right away. Day 23 out of 365 days. My name's Wayne. Let's do it. Pretty much touching on the different types of headings that you would have in the front end of a web page, which is the content and is what HTML is used for. So your H1 element would specifically be used for your top level heading, is what you see here. It says you rarely have more than one of these on a page, and it should typically come before all of your other content. So that's where your H2, H3, other things that are part of this hierarchy that just like any type of text document can just help us to organize this and make everything nice and clean, so that if you have any challenges, improvements, changes, or someone else needs to evaluate what you've written, it's very clear and you'll thank yourself later. That's what I'm starting to learn, just the clarity. Take the time, look at what they've already set up for you. Here are these examples, and make sure that's something that you can duplicate yourself, because just keeping up with the industry standard, you're going to have somebody, from what I've learned or research, you're going to have somebody that's your boss, you're somebody that's a senior developer over you as you start off. And so there's going to be a standard that you are expected to hold to. So kind of creating your own standard. In our situation where we're teaching ourselves, freecodecamp.org is setting up these basic industry standard type of HTML examples, templates, and something. So beginning to write our code in a formal manner is going to help us long term. And here we see that this code here would be incorrect because it's not properly done in order of the hierarchy, H1, H3, H2, rather, which should always be H1, H2, H3. You can have multiple subheadings underneath your top heading, your main heading, but you can have multiple in the same, you can have multiple subheadings, but they should never be out of order like this. All right, let's get to these questions. So why is the hierarchy, structural hierarchy, important? So accessibility, the search engine optimization, and or so browsers know what you mean. All of the above. Which heading element must precede? Which heading element must precede an H3 element? H2. How should you create larger text on your page? Use the correct structural element and then style it with CSS. All right, let's go to this next lecture. What is the difference between presentational and semantic HTML? Presentational HTML focuses on the appearance and style of the content. Presentational focuses on the appearance and style of the content. That is pretty intuitive. So we have, what is the date today? October the 4th. Let's just copy and paste this. Will make it easier. I'd like to take these notes in this format using Free Code Camp. If there's something that comes up later in these quizzes, it's obvious that because they're throwing a lot of information at us at once, it'll be obvious that it's something that I need to note and come back to. So, and so anything that's new, it's just known that, you know, specifically writing notes like via your hand. There's been studies showing that helps with retention of memorizing things. But I find that typing it and or taking the note and reading it just puts you in a situation where you're capturing the information, you can go back to it, and you're also effectively reading it several times when you're copy and pasting. So it works for me. Find a system that works for you. Deprecated elements. So we have deprecated elements is what we're talking about here. Let's get the Dr. Google meaning of this word just so we can understand. Deprecated. It's kind of a strange. Let's see. Expressive approval of, disparage, show it's just outdated and just no longer preferred or used. So I'm assuming that is just CSS is a better option for this, and that's what the industry standard seems to be. So let's look at some of these examples. They say the font element is a deprecated element used to set the font size and color of the text. Here's an example of a font element. This text is blue and large. Gotcha. This example sets the color of the text to blue and the size of the value of 5. The range for the size attribute is from 1 to 7, with 1 being the smallest and 7 being the largest. The default value is 3 if you don't set the value explicitly. While this element still works, you should not use it because the font and size and color should always be set in CSS, not in HTML. I wonder why that happened. The simplicity of using the all-in-one document must not actually be the most efficient and best way to do it, or else they would have kept it. So CSS must have made an improvement, and hopefully I can learn what that is. While this element still works, you should not use it because the font and size color should always be set in CSS, not in HTML. The center element is another deprecated element that is used to center the content horizontally within its container. Here's an example of the center element that contains text and a paragraph element center. This text is centered. HTML is awesome. Period. If in the browser, you would see all of the content within the center element centered horizontally. And next, we have the big element. This is another deprecated presentational HTML element that makes the enclosed text one level bigger than its surrounding text. Here we have an example that defines a paragraph within 2 parts. This text is larger. The first part has normal size text, while the second part enclosed within the big element will be displayed in a larger font size. In the browser, you would see the text within the big element looks larger compared to the surrounding text. However, remember that font size should always be set with CSS, so you should not use this element in modern HTML. These were examples of presentational HTML elements, but all of them are deprecated, no longer recommended. So what should you use instead? Let's see. For example, though, being aware of these things, I assume could become useful if you were to modernize an old system and you were starting to modernize the code itself by taking this and converting it to CSS, if that's something you were going to do. So knowing what it is and why it's there, and potentially what needs to be removed or updated. I wonder if they completely delete stuff, or if you just somehow make it a part of the history of the code, or you just like kind of encapsulate it and say, make this just non-functional. I wonder if that's something that they do. That'd be interesting to know. I know that there's companies modernizing their code, and it could take a very, very long time, and big years, and it could take many years to modernize a global company's website as it's continually growing, because you don't typically just have that one thing you do to do. There's going to be dozens of other things that are being updated and added constantly. So it's very interesting. The first part, I guess. So, however, remember that font size should always be set with CSS, so you should not use this element in modern HTML. These were examples of presentational HTML elements, but all of them are deprecated and no longer recommended. So what should you use instead? Let's see. Semantic HTML is now the recommended practice. It describes the content. Semantic HTML is now the recommended practice. It describes the content of the elements, so it's much easier to read, understand, and maintain. Search engines can easily understand your website when you use semantic HTML. It's also helpful for accessibility purposes because screen readers need semantic information to describe what's on the web page. Examples of semantic HTML elements include the header element for defining the header of the document or section, the navigation section element, nav for sections with navigation links, the section element for grouping related information, the figure element for illustrations and diagrams. This is an example of a header. This is an example of a header element that contains a navigation section header. So we got the nav. We have the, let's see, I think this href. Hypertext reference. Forget what that is again. So let's find the searchability href. Can we search that? Okay. Hypertext reference. Hey, it was actually correct. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Let's see here. Hypertext reference. Home, about, contact, navigation. So setting up some navigation. Sure, there's probably like an example link. The semantic elements clearly show their purpose within the HTML structure. There are many different semantic HTML elements. You will definitely find one that fits the needs for your project. Great work. Now you know the difference between presentational and semantic HTML. Semantic HTML describes the content, while presentational HTML focuses on the appearance. Questions. Which of the following best describes the differences between presentational and semantic HTML? That's the opposite of what's true. Semantic HTML focuses on content structure, while presentational focuses on appearance. Which of the following is an example of presentational HTML? Using the header element to define a header. Presentational. Okay. The presentational would be this outdated process of centering something. Which of the following is an example of semantic HTML? Not this. This is color. This is centering something. This is big text. It's going to be something that represents this navigation. Hey, we got it completely. Let's see what's next for today. Understanding nuance, semantic elements. So we're going to have 3 more quizzes. I think at this point it is 2:45 in the morning here. Wanting to get these quizzes out. It's been a pretty strenuous week. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a full-time student at Liberty University. Finishing in March. I'm looking very much forward to that. So very busy, but wanting to make sure that, and I have on a couple different nights, done some study, some more quizzes and things on my own without streaming it. So just trying to stay consistent, trying to do a little bit each day. They recommend 30 minutes a day, but I'm going to try to make sure the goal is to stream 3 times a week, to keep the accountability, let people follow the journey, be encouraged themselves, encourage them to start their own journey, start their own channel. If there's anything I could do to help in that way, I'm open to that. And if you start your own journey, please reach out, send me a message, send me just leave a comment, and I will check the comments and get back to you, and we'll find a way that we can connect, and then perhaps come on, talk, have a conversation, and hear about your journey and why you want to enter tech and what you think that that could do for your life, and just hear your motivation. So again, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for following the journey. Again, this is Wayne with Technically Reformed. God bless you, and make sure that you tell your family that you love them. Take care.